I believe that we're going to be joined by someone else who potentially, anyway, going to be putting the other side of Blair's knighthood to the nation.
Yes, Peter Edwards is the former editor of the Labour List, which is a pro-Labour news website, which is independent, however, of the Labour Party. Peter, thanks for joining us this morning. Obviously, a very hot topic at the moment. You've had Patrick, I'm assuming, put his views across on this. You're obviously a pro-Labour man, and Blair is one of the longest-serving Labour Prime Minister, actually. So what are your views on him? Do you think he should be getting this knighthood for his leadership over the years?
Well, I'd be quite happy to abolish the system of knighthood and dames altogether, but it is what we have, both for rewarding people who work in their community and figures of national political significance. So with that in mind, I don't think it's wrong that Blair gets a knighthood. And I did disagree with an awful lot of Patrick's monologue. I think you have to look at what Prime Ministers do in the round, and clearly Iraq is a word, and Afghanistan also the word that keeps coming up. One has to be sensitive when talking about this, and remember, for anyone who's lost a loved one in war, they face a daily grief that never goes away. And I think everyone in politics should remember that. But I also think someone like Tony Blair is very conscious of that, and he seems content to be criticised and challenged, and he will be for the rest of his life over the decision on Iraq. But we had three public inquiries. None of them found he lied. And then before you just go on, before you come in, when you go on to his domestic legacy, national minimum wage, who's against that? Peace in Northern Ireland, who's against that? And so on.
Well, there are elements of it. Look, I absolutely take a lot of what you said on board there. But for me, I think it's a question of at least the perception of deception, right? The weapons of mass destruction thing is not great, right? That's not great. And I refuse to believe that Tony Blair was as adamant as he made out, that he knew that there were weapons of mass destruction there and that we had to go in. I don't believe that he was as adamant as he made out about that. He did do these deals with these letters of comfort with the people in Northern Ireland, the IRA, basically, and that wasn't exactly made public, was it? In fact, by definition, they were secret. There are also serious question marks about the numbers when he was talking about immigration, about what he wanted the public to see, the numbers that he was bandying about with regards to that. This guy doesn't really look like he enjoys telling the public the truth, does he?
Oh, Patrick, I think that is nonsense. And I actually think what you're saying is so partial and unbalanced.
Well, balance it for me. Balance it for me. You know, go on. Was he up front with the secret letters that did the deals with the IRA? It wasn't, was it? It was secret.
Peace in Northern Ireland has endured for more than 20 years. The Good Friday Agreement, you can read it online, be poured over, and then talk about Iraq. So we've had three public inquiries: Hutton inquiry, Butler inquiry, Chilcot inquiry. How many of them found he lied? 0. I think people are entitled to disagree with Iraq, and I would. I mean, historians are going to call Iraq a disaster, and sadly, I've got a lot of sympathy for that point of view. But I think what Blair accepts is that we can argue about it and debate, but the suggestion that he just lied to the public has never been stood up.
I'm not saying that he lied to the public about weapons of mass destruction.
But he did win elections after doing each of those things that you opposed.
No, I think that I'm not saying necessarily that he lied. That's a question of personal judgment. And you're right, OK, fair enough. But maybe they haven't come out and said that he was absolutely out and out lied. But I feel like that's a bit of a technicality, really. I don't believe for a single second that he was as adamant, was he? He could have possibly been as adamant about the weapons of mass destruction thing as he let on to the public. I mean, he'd already messaged George Bush, hadn't he? Weeks before to say, I will back you no matter what. So he'd made his mind up.
Well, I think, the phrase you're referring, and this is perhaps one for the historians, to a letter or a message he sent to George Bush that the former ambassador, Christopher Mayer, then picked up in his diaries. And I think the phrase was something like, we'll be with you come what may. But one can read that. That's not necessarily a commitment to an invasion. And frankly, we could debate that for half an hour, but we won't know what the intention of that was. But to zoom out to the big picture, has there been any evidence produced that Tony Blair lied? No, there hasn't. Has there been a lot of very distressing and unpleasant evidence about all the unforeseen consequences of Iraq? Of course. And I think every Prime Minister has learned really painful, salutary lessons, apart, of course, again, from the families who lost loved ones. But you have to look at Blair's legacy in the round. He changed his party, he changed the country, and he won elections after all the things that you have just been criticising him for.
All right. Well, I appreciate you putting up the good fight. That's part of what we are about here at GB News, obviously. It can't just be a one-stop shop,
Thank you for joining us, Peter Edwards, former editor of the Labour List News website.